At least marriage taught me one thing, my husband said, raising his glass in front of 87 guests. Charity really does begin at home. A few people laughed. Grant pointed toward me. 4 years ago, I married a woman with an old Honda, a clearance rack wardrobe, and a freelance job writing descriptions for throw pillows. The laughter grew louder. His marketing director and mistress stood beside our anniversary cake, smiling, as if she had already chosen my side of the closet. My wife may not bring much to the table, Grant continued, but she certainly knows how to sit at one someone else paid for. No one defended me, not his sister, not his uncle, not the employees who knew I had quietly covered their paychecks. Grant lifted his bourbon toward me. So here's to Claire, the most expensive charity project Holloway Homeworks ever took on. I set down my champagne. Then I walked to the restroom, opened my phone, and pressed send. By the time I returned, every person in that room had received the first piece of the truth. But Grant still had the microphone. And because he had spent years mistaking my silence for weakness, he had no idea I was about to take it from him. The anniversary party was being held inside Riverbend Foundry, a restored brick warehouse near downtown Columbus, Ohio. Grant loved the building. He loved its exposed beams, tall windows, polished concrete floors, and the way the city lights reflected in the river after sunset. Whenever he brought clients there, he called it the headquarters I always envisioned. Holloway Homeworks rented the second floor. Grant had chosen the furniture-hung photographs of himself, shaking hands with local officials, and painted his name in 12-inch letters across the reception wall. He did not own the building. He had never asked who did. That was one of Grant's most reliable habits. If something benefited him, he rarely questioned where it came from. He simply began describing it as his. The party had been his idea. He said 4 years of marriage deserved a celebration because 5-year anniversaries are predictable. The truth was less romantic. His remodeling company was short on cash. 2 potential investors were attending. Several donors to his community renovation fund had begun asking uncomfortable questions. He needed a room full of people to see him looking successful. The flowers, champagne, live music, and 3-tier cake were not really for our marriage. They were props. So was I. Grant had told me to wear something simple but respectable. I chose a navy dress from a department store clearance rack. It cost $82. Grant believed the price proved I needed him. I wore it because navy made me look calm even when I was furious. I needed that calm as I stood in the restroom listening to muted laughter through the wall. My hands shook after I pressed send. Not much, just enough for me to notice. The email had gone to Grant's business partners, his major suppliers, 4 donors, his sister Dana, the advisory committee of the Holloway Neighbors Fund, and a local reporter who had spent 2 years praising Grant's generosity. It contained no 100-page report, no confusing contracts, no dramatic allegations written in legal language, only 7 photographs, 12 text messages, 4 project addresses, and 1 question. Where did the money go? My phone buzzed. Luke Parker had replied. We're downstairs. Rosa almost changed her mind. Mateo convinced her to come. I typed back. Wait for my signal. Grant needs to finish showing them who he is. Another message appeared. Are you okay? I looked at myself in the mirror. My hair was pinned back. My lipstick had not smudged. My wedding ring caught the yellow restroom light. Was I okay? Number. I was about to end a marriage in the room where it was being celebrated. I was about to tell Grant's family that the person they called dependent had spent years paying for the care they claimed to provide. I was about to return a dead woman's name to work Grant had built his reputation upon. I was also going to admit that I had known enough to act sooner and had not. Revenge stories sound clean when told afterward. The villain hurts someone. The victim waits. The truth arrives. The villain falls. Real life is messier. Sometimes the person exposing the truth must also admit how long she helped hide it. I removed my wedding ring. For a moment, I held it in my palm. Then I placed it in the inside pocket of my purse and returned to the party. Grant was still on stage. He had moved from insulting my career to praising his own sacrifice. Marriage isn't always 50-50, he said. Sometimes one person provides the vision, the income, the house, the stability, and the other person provides emotional support. His mistress, Sloane Whitaker, laughed a little too loudly. Several people had stopped laughing altogether. They were reading the email. Grant had not checked his phone. He loved hearing himself speak too much. I stood near the front of the room and watched him. He looked handsome. That was still true. Grant was 41, tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair beginning to silver above his ears. He wore a charcoal suit and the watch his father had left him. When I first met him, his confidence had felt like safety. By our 4th anniversary, I understood that confidence without accountability was simply entitlement delivered with good posture. Grant noticed me. "There she is," he said, feeling better. "I'm fine." "Good, I was worried my little joke upset you." It clarified something. The room became quieter. Grant smiled. "Claire is sensitive. Writers usually are. May I have the microphone?" His eyebrows rose. "You want to give a speech?" "Yes." Grant glanced toward the guests. "This should be good." He handed me the microphone. I took it with both hands. "Grant is right about one thing I said. Our marriage has involved sacrifice." He leaned against the stage, smiling. "He is only confused about who made it." The smile remained, but his eyes changed. "Claire," he said softly, "don't make this awkward. You called me a charity project in front of your family, employees, and donors. It was a joke. Then you should enjoy mine." A nervous murmur moved through the room. I looked toward the screen behind the stage. Could someone pause the anniversary slideshow? A staff member pressed a key. Our wedding photograph disappeared. The screen went black. Grant stepped closer. "What are you doing?" "Correcting the story." But before I could explain what that meant, my mind returned to the first time Grant made me believe he was a better man than the rest of his family. That was the reason I had married him. Not a revenge plot, not a hidden plan. Hope. That was the hardest truth to admit. I met Grant 5 years earlier at a regional housing conference in Cincinnati. At the time, Rowan Property Group was a successful but ordinary Ohio company with 63 employees. We managed apartment repairs, renovated rental homes, and helped older homeowners modify houses so they could remain independent. We operated mostly in Ohio with a few projects in northern Kentucky and eastern Indiana. It was not glamorous work. We replaced roofs, repaired water damage, installed safer showers, turned over apartments between tenants, widened doorways for wheelchairs. Most people outside the housing industry had never heard of us. That suited me. My father had been a carpenter. My mother managed a grocery store. I grew up in a house where money was discussed in whispers and anything broken was repaired 3 times before it was replaced. Even after the company became profitable, I kept my old Honda. I bought clothes on sale. I used coupons because I liked coupons. Grant saw those things and created a story about me before we finished our first conversation. At the conference, I was standing beside Rowan's small exhibition booth, editing the wording on a brochure. Grant approached and asked, "Is your boss around?" "I'm the person handling the booth." He smiled. "So you're in marketing, among other things. What kind of copy do you write?" "Property descriptions, training material, renovation proposals." That answer was technically true. As founder, I had written all of those things. Grant assumed I was a freelance copywriter hired for the conference. I did not correct him immediately, not because I was testing him, because I was tired. 9 months earlier, my best friend Brooke Ellis had died by suicide after losing her job and professional reputation. She had worked for a remodeling company in Columbus. I knew the company's name, Holloway Homeworks. I did not yet know exactly what had happened inside it. Brooke had stopped speaking clearly about work during her final months. She said people had stolen her ideas. She said someone had made her the scapegoat for a failed project. She said no other company would hire her because he got there first. Whenever I asked who he was, Brooke would shut down. I believed it was one of the senior managers who had worked for Grant's father. Grant told me his father had recently died, and he had taken over the family company. I asked whether he had known Brooke. His expression changed for less than a second. "Brooke Ellis." "Yes. She worked for my dad's company briefly. She was my best friend." "I'm sorry. Do you know why she left?" Grant looked around the exhibition hall before answering. "There was a project failure. She took it hard." "What kind of failure?" I wasn't involved in the details. That was his first lie. I did not know it yet. Grant then did something I had not expected. He stopped trying to impress me. He asked what Brooke had been like outside work. He listened while I described her obsession with old houses, her habit of drawing floor plans on napkins, and her belief that beautiful design should make ordinary life easier. He did not interrupt. He did not defend the company. He simply said it sounds like she deserved better. Those words mattered to me. For months, everyone had tried to explain Brooke's death. Depression, pressure, bad timing, personal struggles. Grant was the first person connected to her work who said she deserved better. I mistook recognition for remorse. We had coffee after the conference, then dinner 2 weeks later. Grant was charming, but not in the loud, polished way he later became. He brought food when I had the flu. He remembered that I hated lilies because they reminded me of Brooke's funeral. He helped my elderly neighbor carry boxes after a storm damaged her basement. Once, while driving to dinner, we passed a man struggling to push a stalled car out of traffic. Grant pulled over without hesitation and helped. There were no cameras, no clients, no one to praise him. That moment stayed with me long after other parts of him stopped making sense. It is difficult to leave someone when you have seen proof that kindness once existed inside him. You keep waiting for it to return. Grant proposed after 15 months. I said yes. 2 weeks after the engagement, he took me to dinner at his mother's house. Judith Holloway lived in a 2-story brick home in Bexley, one of the older neighborhoods outside Columbus. The house had dark shutters, polished hardwood floors, white hydrangeas, and family photographs covering nearly every wall. Before we arrived, Grant warned me that Judith could be traditional. What does traditional mean? I asked. She cares about family background. She wants to know where I grew up. She wants to know whether you understand what marriage to a business owner involves. I own a business. Grant smiled. Rowan is more of a boutique operation. That was the first time I realized he had never looked it up. I had mentioned Rowan repeatedly. He knew I attended meetings, traveled to job sites, approved budgets, and supervised employees. But because I still wrote marketing copy and drove an old Honda, he had placed my work in the category of small creative project. I should have corrected him then. Instead, I said it keeps me busy. Grant kissed my hand. That's one of the things I love about you. You don't need attention. At the time, it sounded like admiration. Later, I understood it as preference. Judith opened the front door wearing cream slacks, a silk blouse, and a strand of pearls. She looked at Grant first, then at me. Her eyes moved from my shoes to my handbag. So she said, "This is Claire." Grant kissed her cheek. "Mom, be nice." "I am being nice." Judith offered me 2 fingers rather than her whole hand. "Welcome." Dinner was roast beef, green beans, mashed potatoes, and warm rolls. Grant's sister Dana was there with her daughter. So were his uncle Robert and cousin Nathan. For the first 20 minutes, the family discussed people I had never met. Whenever I tried to join the conversation, Judith answered politely and turned back to Grant. Finally, she asked, "What did you say you do, Claire?" "I run a property services company," Grant answered for me. "She writes marketing material and helps coordinate renovations." Judith nodded. "Freelance?" "Not exactly." "Does it provide a stable income?" Before I could respond, Grant said, "Claire supports herself." Judith looked at him. That was not my question. "Mom." His tone was firm. Judith leaned back. "I am only trying to understand." Grant has worked very hard to preserve his father's company. Marriage can become complicated when one person carries most of the financial responsibility. Grant placed his fork down. "Claire isn't asking me to carry her." Judith looked mildly surprised. I was too. "Then I apologize," she said, although she sounded anything but sorry. "I assumed the old car and discount clothes suggested difficult circumstances." "They suggest she doesn't waste money," Grant replied. His defense warmed me. It was small. But when you are entering a family that clearly considers you inadequate, small acts feel enormous. Judith studied me. "My son has always liked rescuing things." "That's enough," Grant said. The room became silent. Judith's mouth tightened. Grant reached under the table and squeezed my hand. For the rest of dinner, Judith remained cold but careful. On the drive home, Grant apologized. "She had no right to speak to you like that." "Thank you for saying something." "I'll always say something." That promise helped me marry him. For the first year, he mostly kept it. Then his father's company began failing, and Grant discovered how much easier life became when he could make someone else smaller. Our wedding was held at a small vineyard outside Dayton. Nothing extravagant. 70 guests, string lights, a local band. Grant cried when I walked down the aisle. I believed the tears. Perhaps he did too. Before the wedding, Grant asked that we keep our finances separate. He said his father had warned him never to mix a family company with marital money. "I know it sounds unromantic," he told me, But I have to protect the employees. I agreed. My accountant had already recommended separate finances because Rowan Property Group existed long before our relationship. Grant seemed relieved. He believed I was protecting a modest business and a few personal savings. I never told him the company's full value, but I did not hide it. My name was on the website, on licenses, in trade publications, on documents mailed to our house. Grant never looked. He knew Rowan had employees, but he assumed there were perhaps 10 or 12. When I referred to my operations team, he pictured a receptionist and 2 contractors. The first months of marriage were happy. Not perfect, but real enough that I still grieved them later. Grant cooked on Sundays. He left notes on the refrigerator. He attended the anniversary of Brooke's death with me and stood silently beside her grave. He told me he wanted to make Holloway Homeworks known for improving ordinary families' lives rather than only remodeling expensive kitchens. I believed him. Then the pressure began. Grant's father had run Holloway Homeworks cautiously. He kept a small crew, avoided debt, and rejected projects the company could not handle. Grant wanted growth, a larger showroom, new vehicles, social media campaigns, commercial contracts, a sponsorship at the local golf tournament. He spent money to make the company appear successful before it had earned enough to become successful. Whenever I asked about cash flow, Grant became defensive. You don't understand this type of business. I run property renovations. You coordinate them. It's different. The first time he said that, I corrected him. I own Rowan Property Group. Grant looked up from his phone. I know. No, I mean I founded it. That's what I said. You called it a boutique consulting company. He sighed. Claire, I'm not insulting you. Rowan is a good small business. Holloway has been part of the city for 32 years. Rowan employed 71 people by then. Holloway employed 46. I could have given him the numbers. Instead, I let the conversation end. That was my first serious mistake. Not because I owed Grant access to every financial detail, but because I allowed him to keep building a marriage around a false hierarchy. Grant was the provider. I was the supportive wife. At first, it seemed easier than correcting him. Later, it became the role he used to silence me. The first missed payroll happened 8 months after our wedding. Luke Parker called me at 6 in the morning. Luke was Holloway Homeworks' new operations manager. Grant had met him at a supplier event and hired him because Luke was capable, calm, and willing to fix other people's mistakes. I had known Luke since college. He was Brooke's older half-brother. They had different last names, and Grant apparently never made the connection. At that point, Luke and I still did not know exactly what Grant had done to Brooke. Luke knew his sister blamed someone at Holloway Homeworks. He joined partly because he wanted answers, and partly because he needed work after moving back to Ohio. Grant doesn't have payroll, Luke told me. How short? 48,000. When is it due? Today. What happened? He used the payroll reserve for the new showroom deposit. Does anyone else know? Not yet. Where is Grant? Driving to Indianapolis to meet a potential client. Does he know you called me? Number. I sat on the edge of our bed while Grant's side was still warm. What happens if the employees aren't paid? Half the crews walk. Several are living paycheck to paycheck. I should have let Grant face the consequence. Instead, Rowan hired Holloway for an apartment turnover project and paid a large advance that morning. The work was real. The price was fair, but I authorized payment earlier than normal to cover the gap. Grant returned from Indianapolis and announced that he had secured a strategic partnership to stabilize payroll. He never asked who had approved it. At dinner, he told me, that's the difference between owning a business and freelancing. When 40 families depend on you, you find a way. I stared at him across the table. I could have told the truth. I did not. Part of me enjoyed knowing I had saved people without needing credit. A darker part enjoyed the control secrecy gave me. If Grant underestimated me, he could not use my company. That reasoning felt wise. It was only partly wise, because each time I rescued the employees without confronting Grant, I also rescued Grant from learning anything. A month later, he bought another truck. Judith's memory problems became obvious during our second year of marriage. She called me one morning because she could not find her car. The car was inside her garage. Another day, she left a pan burning on the stove and went upstairs. The smoke alarm frightened her so badly that she ran outside without shoes. Grant said she was tired. Dana said their mother had always been forgetful. I scheduled an appointment. Grant promised to attend, then canceled because of a client lunch. Dana had an inventory meeting at work, so I drove Judith to the neurologist. After several tests, the doctor diagnosed early-stage Alzheimer's disease. Judith sat in the examination room holding her handbag against her chest. "What happens now?" she asked. The doctor explained that medication might slow some symptoms, but she would need increasing help with bills, driving, food, and daily routines. Judith nodded politely. She did not cry until we reached the parking garage. Then she stopped beside my Honda and whispered, "Grant cannot know about the money." "What money?" She opened her bag and removed a stack of bank statements. Grant had been asking her for loans. $10,000, $25,000, a payment to a credit card company, a transfer to Holloway Homeworks, a check covering a casino bill Grant had described as a client retreat. "How much have you given him?" I asked. "I don't remember." "Did he tell you the company needed it?" "He said his father would have wanted me to help." I closed my eyes. Judith gripped my arm. "Please don't look at me like that." "Like what?" "Like I raised him badly." I looked at the woman who had once inspected my handbag before deciding whether I deserved her son. "You taught him appearances mattered more than people," I said. "But he is an adult. His choices are his." Tears filled her eyes. "Will I lose the house?" "Number." "How can you know?" "Because we're going to make sure the money for your care cannot be borrowed, invested, or spent by anyone else. Even Grant. Especially Grant." Judith stared at me. "Why would you help me?" "Because you need help. After the way I treated you. Your behavior does not make his behavior acceptable." She looked down at the statements. "I thought you wanted his money." "I know. I was wrong." "Yes." There was no gentle way to answer. Judith nodded. Then she said something I never forgot. "I was wrong about your worth before I knew anything about your money. That is the part I am ashamed of." That was the beginning of our real relationship. Judith worked with an independent advisor to protect the savings and future proceeds from her house exclusively for her care. She asked me to oversee payments because Dana avoided financial decisions and Grant could not be trusted near the account. There was no secret inheritance handed to me, no fortune I could keep. Every dollar remained Judith's and could be used only for her housing, medical care, and daily needs. She wrote a letter to Grant explaining why. She placed it inside a blue envelope and gave it to me. "Not yet," she said. When he asks about the money before he asks about me." I hoped that day would never come. It came sooner than either of us expected. For the first year after Judith's diagnosis, she remained in her house. I visited twice a week. I organized her medication, labeled kitchen cabinets, scheduled grocery deliveries, repaired loose railings. Dana came when she could, usually every few weeks. Grant visited on holidays and when he wanted photographs. On Mother's Day, he brought Judith a bouquet posed beside the hydrangeas, posted the picture online, and left 20 minutes later for golf. I stayed to replace spoiled food in her refrigerator. That evening, Judith watched me clean the kitchen and said, "I owe you more than one apology." "You already apologized." "Not enough. Apologies don't become more useful because they are repeated. What makes them useful? Changed behavior." Judith smiled faintly. "You sound like my mother." "Was she difficult?" "Terrible." "Then I'm offended." Judith laughed. By then the cruelty had mostly left her. Sometimes I wondered whether illness had softened her. Other times I thought fear had simply removed the energy required to maintain pride. One afternoon, while I sorted her mail, Judith asked, "Does Grant know what you do?" "He knows I run Rowan." That wasn't my question. I looked at her. Her memory was becoming unreliable, but her insight could still be painfully precise. "No," I said. "Why not?" "He never asked." "Why didn't you tell him?" I tried. "Did you?" I placed the mail down. Not forcefully. Judith nodded. "My husband used to pretend he didn't know how to cook, so I would always do it. Sometimes people don't ask because ignorance benefits them." That sounds like Grant. It sounds like many men. I laughed despite myself. Judith's expression became serious. "Do not let my son make you disappear." At the time, I believed I understood her warning. I did not. The truth about Brooke emerged 3 months later. Rowan Property Group had been invited to bid on a county-funded program modifying homes for seniors and disabled residents. One of my project coordinators brought me a set of old design templates found online. "They're from Holloway Homeworks," she said. The program was called Home Again. "The designs are excellent, but the site hasn't been updated in years." I recognized Brooke's work immediately. The adjustable shelving, the modular vanity, the simple symbols she used beside measurements. Brooke had drawn those ideas on napkins in our college apartment. Her name did not appear anywhere. The documents credited Grant Holloway. That evening I searched our home office. Grant kept old company archives in a cabinet he rarely opened. Inside was a folder labeled Home Again Development. The earliest drawings carried Brooke's initials. Later versions had her name removed. I also found printed emails. In one, Brooke warned Grant not to hire an inexperienced subcontractor for a plumbing renovation. Grant replied, "We need the margin. Stop acting like every job is an art project." 3 weeks later, after the plumbing failed, Grant wrote to his father, "Brooke approved the crew. She has become unreliable and emotional. I recommend termination before she creates further liability." Attached was a revised schedule containing Brooke's name. The original schedule was underneath it. Luke had approved the experienced crew. Grant had changed the selection. I sat on the office floor reading the same messages again and again. Grant had lied at the conference. He had known exactly why Brooke left. Worse, he had stood beside me at her grave. He had comforted me while knowing he helped destroy her career. When Grant came home, I was waiting in the kitchen. The folder lay on the table. He saw it and stopped. "Where did you find that?" "Your office. You went through my files. Did Brooke approve the crew?" Grant removed his jacket slowly. "This again. Answer me. It was years ago. Did she approve the crew?" "We made decisions as a team. The original schedule has Luke's name. The altered one has Brooke's." Grant looked at the papers. "She knew the project." "That is not what I asked." He rubbed his forehead. "Claire Brooke was struggling before that job failed. You told people the failure was hers. She made mistakes. You changed the record. I protected the company. You protected yourself." Grant's expression hardened. "You have no idea what was happening then. My father was dying. The company was close to collapse. The Patterson job could have finished us. So you blamed Brooke. She couldn't handle the pressure. She warned you. She was difficult, emotional, and impossible to manage." "She was right." Grant pushed the folder away. "She is dead, Claire. Nothing we say changes that." For several seconds I could not breathe. "That is what you told yourself. What do you want from me?" "The truth. The truth is Brooke had problems. The truth is you used those problems against her. I did what I had to do." There it was. Not remorse. Justification. I stood. Grant watched me carefully. "Where are you going?" "To Luke." His face changed. "What does Luke have to do with this?" "He's Brooke's brother." Grant became very still. Then he looked away. "You knew," I said. "I discovered it after I hired him. And you never told me." "It didn't matter. You let him work beside you after what you did to his sister. Luke understands business." "No. Luke believed your version because he did not have these." I picked up the folder. Grant caught my wrist. "Not hard enough to bruise. Hard enough to stop me. Do not take company files." I looked at his hand. "Let go." For a moment, he did not. Then he released me. "You are overreacting because you feel guilty," Grant said. "Guilty about what?" "Not saving her." The sentence struck exactly where he intended. Grant knew I had ignored Brooke's final call because I was in a meeting. I returned it 40 minutes later. She did not answer. For years I had replayed that missed call. Grant used my deepest wound to move attention away from his actions. I saw it, and it still worked. I left the folder on the table. Then I walked upstairs and locked the bedroom door. That was my second major mistake. I did not leave. Not then. The following day, Grant apologized for grabbing my wrist. He did not apologize for Brooke. He said we were both emotional and needed time. I told myself I stayed because I needed copies of the records. Because Judith depended on me. Because 46 employees depended on Holloway Homeworks remaining stable. Because leaving immediately would alert Grant and allow him to destroy evidence. All of those reasons contained truth. But they were not the whole truth. I stayed because admitting what Grant had done meant admitting the man I loved had never existed in the form I believed. Sometimes we delay leaving not because the door is locked, because walking through it requires burying hope. Luke did not forgive me for waiting. When I showed him copies of the emails, he read them in silence. We sat in a 24-hour diner near the interstate. It was nearly midnight. Rain moved across the windows. Luke reached the final page and placed both hands flat on the table. He knew. Yes. He looked me in the face every day. Yes. I told him about Brooke. My stomach tightened. What? He asked why I moved back to Ohio. I told him my sister died and I wanted to be near my mother. He asked her name. Luke. He said he remembered her. He said she had talent but couldn't handle pressure. Luke pushed the papers away. I believed him. You didn't have the records. You did. Not until yesterday. And you are going home to him tonight. I looked down. Luke's voice became quieter. Claire, what are you doing? Judith depends on me. Judith does not require you to sleep beside the man who hurt Brooke. The employees are not your excuse either. That company collapses if Grant loses control suddenly. Maybe it should. And the crews, their mortgages, their children. Luke leaned back. You've been secretly rescuing payroll. I looked at him. How do you know? I run operations. I recognize Rowan contracts arriving at convenient moments. Then you understand. No, I understand that each time Grant sets a fire, you put it out before anyone smells smoke. I'm protecting people. You are also protecting him. The words hurt because they were true. What do you expect me to do? Stop confusing being useful with being moral. I stared at him. Luke's eyes filled. My sister spent her last months believing Grant was too powerful to challenge. You know the truth and you are still organizing his life. I'm trying to find a way to leave without hurting everyone else. You are going to hurt people either way. The only question is whether the pain comes from the truth now or a larger disaster later. I hated him in that moment. Not because he was wrong, because he refused to let me pretend I was blameless. I need time, I said. Brooke thought she had time. Luke stood and walked out. We did not speak for 3 weeks. During those 3 weeks, I made copies of every Brooke-related file I could find. Then I returned the originals. I told myself I was preparing to act. But before I did, another family paid for my delay. The Holloway Neighbors Fund had begun as one of Grant's better ideas. At least that was what I believed. He proposed using donations and supplier discounts to repair homes for families dealing with disability, illness, or financial hardship. The concept resembled Brooke's Home Again program, but Grant claimed it was inspired by his father. At the first fundraiser, he told a story about growing up in houses under renovation and learning that a safe home gives a family dignity. People responded. Churches donated. Suppliers contributed materials. Local companies sponsored projects. Families wrote checks for $20 or $50. The first few renovations were completed. Grant visited job sites. He carried lumber. He spoke sincerely with homeowners. For a while, I wondered whether helping others might awaken the decent man I once saw pushing a stranger's stalled car. Then the cameras arrived. Grant discovered he enjoyed being praised more than he enjoyed completing the work. Sloan Whitaker joined Holloway Homeworks as marketing director during the fund's second year. She was intelligent, organized, and ambitious. She understood social media better than anyone Grant had hired. She also understood him. Sloan learned that if she praised an idea before questioning it, Grant considered her loyal. If she arranged photographers, he considered her invaluable. If she laughed at his jokes, he called her the only person who understood the pressure. I noticed the affair before I proved it. Late messages, business trips that did not match the calendar, her perfume on his jacket, a diamond bracelet appearing on her wrist the week after Grant told me the company could not afford Judith's new memory care deposit. When I confronted him, he acted wounded. Sloan works for me. She texts you after midnight. We have deadlines. She stayed in your hotel room in Nashville. There was a booking mistake. Grant. He looked at me with exhausted contempt. You have spent so long pretending you don't care about money or status that you don't understand what ambition looks like. Does ambition remove the need for separate hotel rooms? You're becoming paranoid. I did not argue further. I had already seen the confirmation email. Grant had reserved one suite. Sloan later told me he had said our marriage was over in everything but name. She believed he was waiting until Judith's finances were settled so we could separate without complicating family care. That did not make Sloan innocent. She attended our house for dinner. She smiled at me while sleeping with my husband. But Grant had lied to her too. He told every person the version of reality most likely to keep them useful. The Holloway Neighbors Fund selected Rosa Alvarez and her 12-year-old son, Mateo, for a major bathroom renovation. Mateo used a wheelchair after a car accident. Their bathroom doorway was too narrow and Rosa had to help lift him into the tub each evening. At a televised fundraiser, Grant presented them with an oversized cardboard key. Mateo smiled. Rosa cried. The fund received $24,000 specifically for their project. A crew arrived 2 weeks later and demolished the bathroom. They removed the tub sink part of the floor and one wall. Then the crew disappeared. Rosa called Holloway Homeworks repeatedly. Sloan told her materials were delayed. Grant told donors the project was in active construction. 5 weeks later, Rosa contacted Rowan Property Group after finding an article I had written about accessible renovations. I drove to her house on a rainy afternoon. Plastic sheeting covered the bathroom doorway. Exposed pipes extended from the wall. The floor had been cut open and covered with plywood. Mateo was doing homework at the kitchen table. Rosa apologized for the mess. That apology broke something in me. Her home had been damaged by people who promised to help, yet she was embarrassed for me to see it. "Where have you been bathing?" I asked Mateo. "Our neighbor lets us use hers." Rosa looked down. "He missed school twice because I couldn't get him ready in time." She handed me the project folder. Inside was a payment record I recognized. The Holloway Neighbors Fund had transferred $19,000 to Holloway Homeworks for completed labor and materials. I called Grant from Rosa's kitchen. He answered on the fourth ring. "What?" "I'm at the Alvarez house." Silence. "Why?" "Because their bathroom has been unusable for 5 weeks. The tile is delayed." "There is no tile order. Luke is handling it." "Luke says the project was suspended because the money was moved." Grant lowered his voice. "Claire, don't discuss internal finances in front of a homeowner. Where did the $19,000 go?" "The program has shared operating costs." "What does that mean?" "It means not every donation remains attached to one address. The donation was specifically for Mateo. We had payroll obligations." My stomach tightened. "When?" "What?" "When did you move the money?" Grant hesitated. I already knew the answer. 2 months earlier, Holloway Homeworks had fallen short on payroll again. Grant asked Rowan to advance a payment on another project. I approved it. But the amount had not been enough. He used the Alvarez funds to cover the remaining gap. I had not known, but I had created the pattern that taught him someone would always repair the damage later. "You used a child's bathroom money to pay employees," I said. "I protected 40 jobs. You demolished the room first." That was a scheduling error. "Rosa and Mateo have no bathroom." "Don't become dramatic." I looked at Mateo. He pretended to focus on homework, but he was listening. "I'm sending a Rowan crew tomorrow. You will not interfere with my project." "It is no longer your project." "You don't have authority over me." "No, but I have authority over my company, and my company is fixing what yours abandoned." Grant laughed once. "With what money?" "Mine." "You don't have $20,000 lying around, Claire." Even after everything, he still believed that. "I'll send you the final cost." I ended the call. Rosa was standing near the doorway. "Will this cause trouble?" she asked. "Yes. I don't want anyone fired." Neither had I. That had been the excuse for every rescue. "Neither do I said. "But I should have stopped this sooner." She did not understand what I meant. Luke did. When the Rowan crew arrived the following morning, he was waiting outside the Alvarez house. "I heard you're finally done putting out fires quietly," he said. "I'm finishing the bathroom." That wasn't what I asked. "No," I said, "I'm not done yet." Luke looked disappointed. "I need to know how many families there are." His expression changed. "How many unfinished projects?" "Yes, 17. I closed my eyes. 17. 4 are mostly complete. 6 haven't started. 7 were demolished and delayed. Why didn't you tell me? I did not want you to solve it with another check." "That is unfair." "Is it?" I looked through the front window at Mateo's wheelchair beside the kitchen table. "No," I said. "It isn't." Luke handed me a list of addresses. "This time we don't quietly fix the evidence and let Grant take another photograph. What do you suggest?" "We let the families decide whether they want to speak. And the employees, we offer them somewhere to go before the company collapses." "You have been planning that." "I started after Brooks' files, without telling me." Luke's jaw tightened. "You were still going home to him." That sentence hurt, but I could not challenge it. "What do you need from me?" I asked. "The truth. First with me, then with everyone else." So I told him. I told Luke about Rowan's size. 94 employees by then. Offices in Columbus and Cincinnati. Projects across 3 states. I told him I owned the house Grant called his. I told him Rowan held a majority interest in Riverbend Foundry through a partnership with a local developer. I told him I had approved discounted rent for Holloway Homeworks and advance payments to keep crews employed. Luke stared at me. "How much of Grant's life are you holding up?" "Too much." "Does he know any of this?" "Number." Why? At first, because he didn't ask. Later, because I stopped trusting him. And after that, I took a breath. Because knowing something he didn't know made me feel less powerless. Luke nodded slowly. That I believe. I'm not proud of it. You shouldn't be. I know. He looked at the list of families. What happens now? I stop rescuing Grant. Stopping was harder than deciding. Grant was not a distant business owner whose failures affected strangers. He was my husband, Judith's son, Dana's brother, the employer of people I knew by name. Every boundary I set created consequences for someone who had not caused the problem. That was how Grant maintained control. He surrounded his bad decisions with innocent people and trusted others to protect them. I began by refusing another advance payment. Grant called from his office. Rowan's accounting department says the invoice cannot be accelerated. That's correct. I need it Friday. The work is not complete. It's close. It is 38% complete. Your people have paid early before. They won't again. Grant became quiet. This is about the Alvarez project. It's about every project. You are punishing my employees because you are angry with me. No, I am offering your employees interviews. What? Rowan has open positions. You are poaching my crews. I am giving people a choice before you miss payroll. You think I can't run my father's company? I think you have been using deposits from new customers to finish old jobs. That is how construction cash flow works. No, that is how companies collapse. Grant arrived home early that night. He threw his keys onto the kitchen counter. You have wanted control from the beginning. I have spent 3 years avoiding control over you. You've been talking to Luke. Yes. He has always resented me. He knows what happened to Brooke. Grant looked away. You promised we were moving forward. I never promised that. You stayed. Yes. Then you forgave me. No, I delayed confronting what staying meant. He stared at me. Are you leaving? The question sounded more frightened than angry. For a moment I saw the man who brought me soup. The man who defended me at Judith's table. The man who cried at our wedding. I wanted him to say he was sorry. Not strategically. Not because he feared consequences. Because he finally understood. I haven't decided, I said. That was the truth. Grant stepped closer. We can fix this. Then tell the families what happened. His face closed. That would destroy the fund. Tell the employees you used restricted donations for payroll. I protected their jobs. Tell Luke you changed Brooke's project records. She is dead. The gentleness disappeared as quickly as it had arrived. Grant pointed toward me. You don't want to fix anything. You want to judge me. I want you to stop demanding forgiveness without admitting what you did. You think you're morally superior because you write checks. I think money should not be taken from children to protect your reputation. That is not what happened. It is exactly what happened. Grant walked away. The following week, he announced the anniversary party. He said we needed a reset. I understood immediately. Grant wanted an audience. If he could appear successful beside a loyal wife, donors might stop asking questions and investors might reconsider. Sloane planned the event. She selected the flowers, music, and anniversary photographs. She also created a presentation claiming 25 families had been helped through the Holloway Neighbors Fund. Only 4 projects were truly complete. When I asked Grant to cancel the party, he refused. People have already confirmed. Then tell them it is postponed. You are embarrassed because my professional circle will be there. No, I'm embarrassed by the way you use people. Grant smiled without warmth. You've changed. No, I stopped making myself easy for you. 2 days later, he discovered Judith's house had been sold. Her condition had worsened and she had moved into memory care. The house proceeds went into the account paying for her room nursing support medication and long-term expenses. Grant called me from the bank parking lot. Where is my mother's money? Not how is she? Not why did the house sell? The money. I looked at the blue envelope inside my desk drawer. It is paying for her care. I need access. Number. I'm her son. She chose me to oversee payments. You manipulated her. She made the decision while she still understood everything. You turned her against me. You asked for money while she was afraid of forgetting her own address. I was trying to save the company. You were trying to avoid consequences. Grant's voice became low. I need $300,000. Number. Temporarily. Number. I can repay it after the investment closes. There is no investment. You contacted them. They contacted Rowan for a reference. You sabotaged me, I answered honestly. Grant hung up. That evening he came home furious. He walked into the kitchen and said, How much do you control? Of Judith's money, of everything. What does that mean? He looked around. The house. Is it yours? Yes. His face shifted. You said you rented before we married. I said I lived here. You let me believe I bought this house. You have never made a mortgage payment. I pay expenses. You sometimes pay utilities. What else? I said nothing. Grant stepped closer. What else are you hiding? My work. What about it? Rowan is not a small consulting company. How large? Large enough. That is not an answer. You never wanted an answer. I'm your husband, and I stopped trusting you. The words landed between us. Grant's face became strangely calm. I see. No, you don't. You've been laughing at me. I have been protecting myself. You let me introduce you as a freelance writer. You introduced me without asking. You enjoyed making me look stupid. I did not need to make you look anything. For a second, I thought he might strike me. Instead, he picked up a glass from the counter and threw it into the sink. It shattered. I did not move. Grant looked at the broken pieces. Then he said, "At least at the party, people will see who supported whom." That was when I knew he intended to humiliate me. You don't want to do that, I said. He smiled. Maybe you're not the only one who can correct a story. At the anniversary party, standing beneath the dark screen, I looked at Grant and remembered that conversation. He believed he had arranged the room to restore himself. Instead, he had gathered every person who needed to hear the truth. I raised the microphone. My name is Claire Rowan, I said. Most of you know that. What many of you do not know is that I founded Rowan Property Group 11 years ago. The Rowan logo appeared on the screen. Grant stared at it. I continued. We employ 94 people. We manage renovation and housing projects across Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. That was the first secret. Not billions, not an empire, a successful regional company built through years of ordinary work. Grant's mouth opened. Claire, Holloway Homeworks has received more than $2 million in contracts from Rowan during the past 3 years. Several employees looked toward Grant. When Holloway missed payroll, Rowan advanced payments. When the company lost its previous office, Rowan approved below-market rent in this building. Grant stepped onto the stage. That is confidential business information. No, this is context. I changed the slide. A photograph of Riverbend Foundry appeared. Rowan Property Group holds the majority ownership interest in this building. The room became silent. Grant looked up at the steel beams as if the ceiling itself had betrayed him. You said I gave you a home and a life, I continued. The house where we have lived for 4 years belonged to me before we met. A murmur moved through the Holloway relatives. Grant reached for the microphone. I stepped back. You lied. I allowed you to remain uninterested. That is the same thing. No. It is what happens when someone only listens to information that makes him feel important. The first investor, a man named Charles Bennett, looked at Grant. You said you owned your headquarters. Grant ignored him. This is a marital argument, he said. Claire is angry because I made a joke. No, I said. The marriage explains why I remain silent. It is not why these people are here. I looked toward the entrance. Luke opened the doors. Rosa entered first, pushing Mateo's wheelchair. Behind them came 5 other families whose homes had been damaged or abandoned. Not all 17. Some did not want to appear publicly. That choice mattered. These 6 had agreed to speak. Grant's face lost color. What are they doing here? Rosa answered. We came because you used our son in your advertisements. A photograph of Mateo's demolished bathroom appeared on the screen. Gasps moved through the room. Rosa stood beside her son. Mr. Holloway's fund promised to make our bathroom safe. His crew removed the tub, sink, wall, and floor. Then they stopped coming. Grant raised both hands. There were supplier delays. I changed the image. Beside the demolished bathroom appeared the fund's payment record. $19,000 was reported as completed work, I said. The actual work performed cost less than $2,000. One of the donors stood. Where did the rest go? Grant looked at him. Funds are shared between projects. Luke spoke from the back. The Alvarez money covered payroll after Grant spent the payroll reserve on the new showroom. Grant turned. You are fired. Luke walked forward. I resigned this morning. You signed confidentiality agreements. This is not confidential. It is a family standing in front of you. Rosa looked at Grant. My son had to use our neighbor's bathroom for 5 weeks. I was going to finish the job. When? Grant had no answer. The screen changed again. A second unfinished house, then a third. A veteran's front steps removed and never replaced. A widow's roof covered with a tarp for 4 months. A kitchen left without working cabinets. No complicated accounting. Just photographs, homes, people, promises. The anniversary party was initially charged to the Holloway Neighbors Fund as donor outreach, I said. The room erupted in whispers. Grant stared at me. I corrected that. No, I discovered it and paid the bill through Rowan. Sloane stood beside the cake, her expression rigid. I displayed a photograph of the diamond bracelet she was wearing. The fund also paid for this. Sloane looked down at her wrist. Grant said that was a marketing gift. You told me it came from your personal account, Sloane said. Not now. Her eyes narrowed. No, you told me Claire had no role in the business. You said she lived off you. Grant's jaw tightened. Sloane, stop. You said the marriage was finished. Dana looked toward her brother. Grant. He ignored her. Sloane removed the bracelet. She placed it on the table beside the cake. I knew you were moving money between projects, she said. I did not know you were charging gifts to a disabled child's renovation. Rosa's expression hardened. You knew enough to wear it. Sloane looked at her but did not argue. That was the only honest thing she did that night. Grant pointed at me. You planned this with them. Yes. The room quieted. I did not deny it. I invited the families. I sent the records. I prepared the photographs. You married me to destroy me. Number. My voice shook for the first time. I married you because I believed you were the man who defended me at your mother's table. I believed you when you said Brooke deserved better. I believed your kindness was real. Grant became still at Brooke's name. I continued. I discovered the truth after we were married. Luke walked onto the stage carrying a framed photograph. Brooke stood in an unfinished kitchen wearing jeans, work boots, and a yellow hard hat. She held a roll of drawings beneath one arm. Luke placed the photograph beside the screen. My sister created home again, he said. Several longtime employees looked at one another. Grant shook his head. It was a company program. She designed it, Luke replied. The accessible vanity adjustable shelving doorway plans and low-cost material system were hers. We collaborated. No, said Mark Donnelly. Mark had worked for Grant's father for 24 years. Until that moment, he had remained near the back wall. Grant stared at him. Mark walked forward slowly. Brooke designed the program, he said. Your father wanted her to lead it. You are remembering incorrectly. I watched you remove her name. The room became silent. Grant's voice sharpened. She caused the Patterson failure. No, Luke said. You hired the cheaper crew after she objected. Then you changed the schedule. Grant looked toward me. You stole company records. I copied records showing you lied. You stayed married to me after finding them. The accusation landed. This was the part I had to own. Yes, I said. People looked at me. I stayed too long. Grant seemed surprised. I told myself I was protecting Judith. I told myself I was protecting employees. I told myself I needed time to understand the fund. I looked toward Rosa. Because I waited, the Alvarez family and others were hurt longer than they should have been. Rosa held my gaze. I cannot ask anyone to believe I handled everything perfectly, I continued. I did not. Grant smiled bitterly. There, she admits it. I admit I helped keep your failures invisible. His smile disappeared. I advanced payments. I completed projects quietly. I allowed you to accept praise because exposing you seemed more dangerous than carrying you. Luke looked down. I was wrong. Grant pointed towards the families. You think apologizing makes you innocent? No. Finishing what I abandoned is part of taking responsibility. The veteran with the cane spoke. At least she came back. Grant turned toward him. I was coming back. You stopped answering my calls. More voices followed. A widow whose roof had remained under a tarp. A father whose kitchen had been left unusable. A donor whose church had raised $11,000. Grant attempted to answer each person. Supplier problems, staff turnover, scheduling errors, unexpected costs. Every explanation placed responsibility somewhere else. Finally, Dana stepped forward. Stop. Grant looked at his sister. You don't understand. I understand Mom moved into memory care 6 months ago. That has nothing to do with this. You visited twice. I was working. Claire visited every week. Grant's face hardened. Claire turned Mom against me. No, Dana said, Mom waited for you. The room became quiet again. Dana looked at me. I knew Grant was spending time with Sloane. My chest tightened. Dana continued. I suspected the affair. I knew he was not visiting Mom. I told myself it was not my place to interfere. She looked toward Grant. I am not ready to pretend I understand all of this, but she is telling the truth about you. Grant stared at his sister. You're choosing her. I'm choosing to stop lying. It was not a perfect apology. Dana did not suddenly understand every way her silence had hurt me, but it was real. I reached into my purse and removed the blue envelope. Grant recognized his mother's handwriting. His face changed. What is that? A letter Judith asked me to give you. When you asked about her money before asking about her, you had no right to discuss her finances in this room. I'm not discussing her finances. I opened the envelope. I'm reading her explanation. Grant looked toward the exit. For a moment, I thought he might leave. Then he said, "Go ahead." The letter was shorter than he expected. Judith had written it during one of her clearer afternoons. Grant, when you were 9, you broke Mrs. Carter's window and let Dana take the blame. I told myself you were frightened. When you were 16, you took money from my purse and said your friend had stolen it. I told myself you were embarrassed. When your father became ill, you asked him to sign business documents while he was taking medication that confused him. I told myself you were trying to help. I have spent much of your life giving kinder names to your selfish choices. I will not do that with the money needed for my care. Claire did not take anything from you. She showed up when you did not. She brought my medication. She repaired my house. She sat with me when I forgot where I was. You ask about my savings more often than you ask about my health. That is why Claire manages the money for my care. I treated her badly because I believed money decided a person's worth. I taught you the same mistake. I am sorry for both. Family is not something you use until it is empty. Family is the people you show up for when no one is watching. By the time you read this, I may not remember writing it. But I knew what I was saying when I did. Mom. When I finished, Grant was looking at the floor. No one moved. His humiliation no longer came from my company, the photographs, or the investors. It came from being seen by the people who had spent years helping him avoid seeing himself. Grant lifted his head. You poisoned her against me. Dana shook her head. Mom defended you her entire life. You weren't there. Neither were you. Grant turned toward me. What do you want? The question sounded different now, smaller. I want the unfinished homes completed. You already arranged that. Yes. I want Brooke's name restored to the program she created. Luke placed a small plaque beneath Brooke's photograph. Brooke Ellis, creator of Home Again. I want donors told exactly what happened. They'll destroy the company. No, your choices did that. You want me gone. I looked at him. Yes. The word seemed to surprise both of us. Not because I had never thought it, because it was the first time I said it without qualification. Grant stepped closer. You do not get to end a marriage in front of an audience. You began ending it in front of one. That speech was a joke. The affair was not. Sloan looked away. The fund was not. Brooke was not. Judith was not. Mateo was not. Grant's voice rose. You think everyone will admire you because you secretly own a company? Number. I looked around the room. My money does not prove Grant was wrong to humiliate me. Several guests became very still. He was wrong before anyone knew what I owned. That mattered more than every financial reveal. I deserved respect when he thought I had nothing. Rosa deserved respect before cameras arrived at her house. Brooke deserved credit before her work became profitable. Judith deserved a son who visited even after she could no longer offer him anything. I handed the microphone to the staff member beside the stage. I am finished explaining my worth to people who only recognize it after seeing a balance sheet. For several seconds, no one spoke. Then Rosa began clapping. Luke joined her. A few Rowan employees followed. The applause spread slowly. Not a dramatic explosion. Not everyone participated. Grant's uncle remained seated. Several relatives looked embarrassed. Sloan stood rigid beside the cake. But enough people clapped for Grant to understand the room no longer belonged to him. He walked off the stage. At the exit, he turned toward me. You will regret doing this publicly. I looked at him. I tried silence. Then he left. No one followed. The party did not become a celebration after Grant walked out. That would have felt wrong. The caterer packed the anniversary cake. The musicians stopped playing. Families spoke quietly with donors. Employees gathered around Luke. Some guests approached me to apologize. Others left without making eye contact. Grant's uncle Robert told Dana that marital issues should stay private. Dana answered, so should charity fraud apparently. It was the first time I had ever heard her challenge him. Sloane approached me while I was collecting Judith's letter. The diamond bracelet remained on the cake table. I did not know everything she said. You knew he was married. Yes. You knew he described me as dependent. Yes. You liked believing it. Sloane looked towards the doors Grant had exited through. He said you used him for stability, and that made sleeping with him acceptable. Number. Her answer surprised me. I am not asking you to forgive me, she continued. I'm telling you I was stupid enough to believe a story that made me feel chosen. I believed one too. Sloane looked at me. For one moment we understood each other. That did not make us allies. It only made the truth less simple. She placed her company keys beside the bracelet. I'm resigning. Luke already disabled your access. A faint, humorless smile appeared. Of course he did. Sloane walked out alone. Luke found me near the empty stage. You okay? He asked. Number. Me neither. Brooke's photograph remained beneath the screen. I thought this would feel better, I said. What did you expect? Relief. Do you feel any? Some. Then maybe that's enough for tonight. I looked at him. I should have acted when we found the files. Yes. The answer hurt. Luke continued. But you acted now. That doesn't repair the time. Number. He never softened the truth for me. That was one reason I trusted him. We start the houses Monday, he said. Tomorrow. It's Sunday. Then Monday. For the first time that night, I almost smiled. Grant was sitting on the front steps when I arrived home. A suitcase rested beside him. Dana had packed several days of his clothes after he called her from the party. She refused to let him stay at her house. He came to mind because he still believed access was a form of ownership. You changed the code, he said. Yes. This is my home. Number. He stood. We need to talk. We have talked. Not without people watching. You only listen when people are watching. Grant rubbed both hands over his face. Without the suit jacket and microphone, he looked exhausted. I was angry, he said. You prepared that speech. I had been drinking. You insulted me before your second bourbon. I did not know about Rowan. That is not the defense you think it is. You hid your life from me. You ignored it. You let me look like a fool. You called your wife a freeloader in front of 87 people. Grant looked toward the dark windows. I thought you needed me. You needed to think that. He became silent. I waited. For a moment, I hoped he might finally admit it. Instead, he said, what happens to the company? Mark and the senior employees will meet tomorrow. You arranged a takeover. No. They are deciding whether the viable projects can continue without you. They cannot remove me. That is between you and them. What about the building? Holloway's lease remains in effect for 30 days while customer files and equipment are organized. Grant stared at me. You planned everything. No, I prepared for the consequences you refused to consider. What about Mom? The question softened me for half a second. Then he continued. Will her account keep paying for the facility? There it was. Not whether he could see her. Not whether she was frightened. The payments. Yes, I said, Judith's care is secure. And whatever remains, it continues supporting her. What happens after she dies? I looked at him. Grant seemed to hear himself too late. I didn't mean. Yes, you did. He picked up the suitcase. Do you enjoy this? Number. You looked calm. I practiced. You made me look like a monster. I showed people photographs. You turned everyone against me. I stopped standing between you and their anger. Grant walked toward his truck. Before opening the door, he turned. Did you ever love me? Yes. The answer seemed to wound him more than no would have. Then how could you do this? Because loving you was not helping you become better. It was helping you avoid consequences. He looked down. What am I supposed to do now? For once, something no one else can do for you. Grant drove away. I entered the house and locked the door. His coffee mug sat beside the sink. His shoes were still near the mudroom. A grocery list in my handwriting remained attached to the refrigerator. Nothing looked transformed. Freedom is often quieter than people imagine. No music, no sudden happiness. Just a room where you finally stop waiting for someone else's footsteps. I went upstairs, removed my dress, and sat on the bedroom floor. Then I cried. For Brooke. For Judith. For Mateo. For the marriage I had believed in. For the years I spent confusing control with safety. For the decent version of Grant I had seen in brief moments and could never bring back through patience. The fact that someone hurt you does not mean every loving memory was false. It means the loving memories were not enough. By the following morning, the consequences had begun. The two potential investors withdrew. 3 suppliers suspended Holloway's credit. Mark and the senior employees voted to remove Grant from daily management while they reviewed unfinished projects. 22 employees accepted interviews with Rowan. Others chose different companies. No one was forced to follow me. They were given choices Grant had spent years denying them. The Holloway family group chat filled with messages. Uncle Robert called my actions vindictive. Aunt Patricia said I should have protected Judith's privacy. Nathan wrote that Grant had made mistakes but did not deserve public humiliation. Dana replied, Claire did not bring Grant's behavior into public. Grant did that when he used a public anniversary speech to degrade his wife and a public charity to collect donations. It was not an apology to me. It was a beginning. Grant wrote a long message accusing me of deception. I answered with 4 sentences. Judith's care remains protected. Every unfinished family project will be completed. Holloway employees will receive the wages owed to them. I will not debate my dignity in this group. Then I left the chat. That afternoon, Dana called. Robert says you are tearing the family apart. The family was already divided between people Grant hurt and people who preferred not to know. I was one of the second group. Yes. Dana became quiet. I kept telling myself you were strong enough to handle him. My strength was never permission. I know. Do you? I'm beginning to. It was not the perfect realization she had delivered in the earlier version of the story I sometimes wished existed. Real people change slowly. Dana asked, Can I visit Mom with you this week? You never needed my permission. I think I needed someone to stop letting me make excuses. Thursday at 3, she has music therapy. I'll be there. She was. Then she returned the following week. And the week after that, words began her apology. Repetition made it believable. The 6 families who attended the anniversary party met with Rowan Cruz that Monday. The other 11 were contacted privately. We did not issue oversized cardboard keys. We did not promise impossible completion dates. At each house, the project manager wrote 3 things on a board. What has been done? What remains? When we will return? Rosa agreed to serve on a community advisory group. Her first rule was simple. No demolition until every major material is confirmed. Her second rule was harsher. If the schedule changes, the family hears before the donor. Luke became director of the new program. We called it Brooks Home Again Initiative. He refused the title at first. I don't want people thinking I'm using her name, he said. You're not. What if I fail? Then Rosa will tell you. Rosa, standing beside us, nodded. I absolutely will. Mateo joined meetings by video whenever school allowed. He asked questions adults overlooked. Could a person reach the towel shelf from a wheelchair? Would the light switch be low enough? Could the shower floor become slippery? Could the mirror tilt? Luke began calling him the design inspector. Within 4 months, 12 projects were complete. The remaining 5 required structural work and took longer. Every Friday we published a short update. No inspirational language. No photographs of crying families without consent. Just cost schedules and progress. Donations initially dropped because people were angry. Then they returned. Trust rebuilt slowly. That was how it should work. Holloway Homeworks did not survive under its original name. The senior crew formed a smaller company and completed the remaining customer projects. Grant's trucks and showroom equipment were sold. Most of the money went to unpaid suppliers' refunds and wages. Grant accused me of stealing his father's legacy. Mark answered him during their final meeting. Your father's legacy was the people he trained, not the name on the truck. Grant left Columbus for several months. Sloan resigned and returned several purchases after the fund's advisory committee demanded repayment. She later took a marketing job in another city. We never spoke again. The misuse of donations was investigated. Grant eventually admitted using restricted funds for payroll, personal expenses, and the anniversary event. He was ordered to repay the fund barred from managing charitable money and served several months in a county facility after additional false records were discovered. I attended none of the hearings. There was no final courtroom stare, no speech from a judge that healed anyone. Legal consequences were necessary. They were not closure. Closure came in smaller places. A finished bathroom, an employee receiving a final paycheck, a mother realizing she had been waiting for a son who only visited when he needed something, a dead woman's name placed back on her work. 3 weeks after the anniversary, Dana came with me to see Judith. By then, Judith lived in a secured memory care wing. Some days she recognized us. Other days she believed she was waiting for her husband to collect her from work. That afternoon, she sat beside a window folding the same towel repeatedly. Dana stopped in the doorway. Mom. Judith looked up. Recognition appeared slowly. Dana. Dana's face crumpled. She knelt beside the chair. I'm sorry I haven't been here. Judith touched her hair. You were busy. The automatic forgiveness in those words hurt Dana more than anger would have. No, she whispered. I was afraid. Judith had already returned to folding the towel. Dana looked at me. What do I do? Sit. We stayed for 2 hours. Dana helped organize old photographs. I spoke with the nurse about Judith refusing breakfast. Before we left, Judith asked, Did Grant come? Dana looked at me. I let her answer. Not today, Mom. He works too much. Dana closed her eyes. Yes. On the way to the parking lot, she began crying. I wanted to tell her everything. It would only frighten her. Then we lie. We choose the truth she can use. Dana wiped her face. What truth can she use? That she is safe. That we are coming back. That she is not alone. Dana nodded. The following Thursday, she came without me. That mattered. Meh. 6 months later, we held a small dedication for Brooks' Home Again initiative. It took place at a neighborhood community center. No ballroom, no champagne, no giant sponsor display. The 17 families attended with Rowan employees, suppliers, and several former Holloway crews. Brooks' photograph stood near the entrance. Beside it was one of her original drawings for an adjustable bathroom vanity. Luke spoke for less than 5 minutes. My sister believed a home should serve the people living inside it, he said. She did not design for applause. She designed for mornings when someone needs to get dressed safely, evenings when a caregiver is exhausted, and ordinary days when dignity means reaching your own kitchen shelf. His voice tightened. Her name was removed from her work once. It will not be removed again. He stepped away from the microphone. Rosa presented him with a framed photograph of Mateo's completed bathroom. Mateo had written beneath it, Thank you for coming back. Luke held the frame against his chest. For the first time since Brooks' funeral, I saw something close to peace in his face. Not complete peace. Justice does not resurrect anyone. But Brooks' story no longer ended with what Grant did to her. Her work continued. That was the legacy he had failed to steal. After the ceremony, a reporter approached me. She had attended the anniversary party. May I ask one question? 1. Why expose Grant publicly? I looked around the room, at Rosa, at Luke, at workers who had spent years repairing his mistakes. Because Grant used public admiration as protection, I said. In private, he could deny everything and isolate the person questioning him. Did you want revenge? I considered the word. Number. What did you want? For the truth to have witnesses. She wrote that down. Then she asked, Do you regret waiting? Yes. The answer surprised her. I thought you might defend your timing. I protected employees and Judith. I also protected Grant longer than I should have. Both things are true. Would you do anything differently? I would stop believing I needed a perfect plan before setting a boundary. The interview ended there. That was enough. A year after the anniversary party, I sold the house where Grant and I had lived. People expected me to keep it as proof of victory. But homes remember. The kitchen remembered broken glass. The bedroom remembered the nights Grant returned smelling like Sloane's perfume. The front steps remembered him asking where he was supposed to go after demanding everyone else rescue him. I did not want a monument to survival. I wanted a life. I bought a smaller house near a park. It had a wide porch, an old maple tree, and a kitchen that needed work. For 3 months, I left the kitchen untouched. Then Mateo helped choose the cabinet handles. Rosa selected the floor tile. Luke argued with me about lighting. Dana brought Judith's old recipe box. We renovated it on a Saturday. No cameras, no speeches. Just music pizza boxes and people who stayed after the work was finished. Near sunset, Dana found me alone on the porch. Are you happy? She asked. I'm peaceful. That isn't exactly the same. No, but peace lasts longer. Dana leaned against the railing. Mom asked about Grant yesterday. What did you tell her? That he was away. That was kind. She asked about you too. Did she remember my name? No, she called you the woman who fixes things. I smiled. That is close enough. The next afternoon I visited Judith. She was sitting beside the window in a pale blue sweater. A nurse had curled her hair. When I entered, Judith smiled politely. Hello. Hello, Judith. Do I know you? My name is Claire. She considered that. Are you the woman who fixes houses? Yes. Her shoulders relaxed. My house had white flowers, hydrangeas. My husband planted them. I remember. Judith touched my left hand. My wedding ring was gone. You lost something, she said. I took it off. Did it hurt? Yes. Are you all right now? I sat beside her. I'm becoming all right. Judith nodded as if that were a complete answer. For several minutes, we watched birds gather near the courtyard feeder. Then she said Grant liked people to clap. He did. Did they stop? The question caught me off guard. Yes. Judith looked toward the window. Maybe he can hear himself now. A moment later, she forgot what we were discussing. She asked whether it was Tuesday. It was Sunday. I did not correct her. She fell asleep with her hand resting over mine. I looked at the woman who had once told me I was fortunate because her son chose me. In the end, neither of us had been fortunate in the way she imagined. But we had both learned something before time ran out. Judith learned that money could not measure character. I learned that proving my worth was never supposed to be the price of belonging. Grant once said I brought nothing to the table. He was wrong. I had brought labor, money, patience, loyalty, solutions, silence. Every time his company stumbled, I steadied it. Every time his mother needed care, I appeared. Every time his lies threatened innocent people, I quietly reduced the damage. Then one night I stopped. Grant believed I destroyed his life. I did not. I withdrew my silence, my money, my labor, and my protection. What happened afterward was not revenge. It was gravity. And that is the lesson I carried forward. When someone repeatedly calls you a burden while living off your patience, work, loyalty, or emotional strength, do not wait for a dramatic reveal to prove your value. Your dignity does not begin when the room learns what you own. It existed when no one defended you. It existed when your work went unseen. It existed when your family treated your sacrifices as obligations. And it still exists when you finally stand up, take back the microphone, and refuse to let someone else narrate your life. So tell me honestly, was Claire right to expose Grant in front of his family, employees, and donors after he humiliated her publicly? Or should she have walked away quietly and handled everything behind closed doors?